Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life.
Pat? Brendel, how are you?
Oh, that was a 5 second fucking delay. Oh, Jesus. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. Where are you?
So I'm up in Evans Head at another shushing library thing. Somehow it's Evans Head Bolo or Bowling Club, and it's somehow combined with the caravan park. So I'm literally in a caravan park cabin next to the Bolo.
Who says that libraries don't know how to treat their staff?
Fucking 100%, 100%. So I'm sitting here on what seems to be a really unstable connection. I jumped from the free Bolo Wi-Fi to hotspotting on my phone. I think my 4G's shit, so I've jumped back to the Bolo Wi-Fi, which is not much better, but let's see how we go. Oh, actually, before we get started, right? So I don't know who's seen my tweet about having my boss in the car for 4 hours, but I was asking people to give me pod recommendations to actually, I guess, have him listening to. And I went with Breedlove and Booth and started that, which he was happy to start listening to. And that was good. But then about 20 minutes in, he literally said, "Brendan, I'll buy some Bitcoin if you'll turn it off." So I did, and I'm sorry, Jeff, but then I put on Sailor and Breedlove. And he was
okay with that.
Well, he was listening to it, but then when we got to the destination, I'm like, "So are we going to start this again tomorrow on the way back?" And he's like, "They're not even talking about Bitcoin. They're talking about apex predators and slingshots and all kinds of shit." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I haven't got him yet, but I'm still working on it.
Good man. So through our dodgy connection, let's hope this works. But we've also have a guest in New Zealand. So I don't know. I think the connection over there hopefully is slightly better. Dr. Simon Collins. Simon, hello.
Hey guys, how you going?
I'm good.
Good, thank you.
Yeah,
good, thank you.
We're first world internet over here, guys. This is you won't get any. There's no choppiness on my end.
No.
Do you know
famous last words?
No,
last words.
I've got because I'm a gamer, as people might know, and I've got a mate in New Zealand I play Xbox with, and he every now and then screenshots me like speed tests or his download upload, and it's fucking ridiculous. It's embarrassing how bad Australia's internet is compared to New Zealand.
Yeah, although we had a national fiber rollout, which aimed to get 98.2% of New Zealanders covered by fiber. I live in the 0.8% of the country that's not getting fiber. So I'm on VDSL, but it's good for VDSL. But yeah, so no, I feel your pain. It's not nice having people kind of lord it over you, is it?
You're in the South Island, Simon, yeah?
I am, yeah. I'm just over the hill from Christchurch.
Gotcha.
Which, if you've never been, is one of the biggest cities down south. But it's where all the electricity is. So that's why I'm here.
Oh, so that's okay. So that's why you live there anyway, or that is why you're there?
I lived here anyway. I'm actually a Wellington boy, and we moved down south a few years ago to kind of take on an old family property that we've been cracking into over a few years. And but I was a Bitcoiner for a long time, but kind of transitioned from being a gainfully employed public sector consultant to full-time degen Bitcoin miner over the last few years.
I just got a boner. And it's not the reason why, but I'm going to turn my video off just so it's so it might help the connection. But Simon, keep talking.
Welcome,
Do
Simon.
you want me to keep talking? I was going to say, do you want me to keep talking? Yeah, right,
Let's
right.
talk about mining,
keep talking
baby.
degen to
Yes.
you. Yeah. So look, we live in so South Island of New Zealand is a place of pure abundance of both food and energy. And New Zealand has one of the world's highest balances of renewables as the main source of generation for the country. And the further south you go, the more renewable our energy supply gets. So, and more abundant the energy and the generation is, because most of the big hydroelectric generation is down south, even further south than we are. So it makes it in my view, one of the best places in the world to mine Bitcoin. And that's one of the reasons I started Stacker up where we're at, and why I started Stacker, because the opportunity down here is just so good.
But let's go back. What so you have the business. We'll get to the business. But when did the mining start? And did you start in your bedroom, or how did that work?
I did, yeah. And I used to mine on a CPU when that was still worth doing.
Yep.
I don't have any of those Bitcoins. I don't even have any. I'm one of those guys that needs to go searching dumps for old laptops because I've got probably a few wallets out there that are probably worth quite a lot these days. But yeah, so I mined on a CPU very, very early days as sort of, hey, this is a pretty interesting little thing. First time I ever used Bitcoin was to buy a membership to a private torrent tracker site, and then probably in kind of larger and larger oscillating waves, kind of like Bitcoin's hash rate, to be perfectly honest, kind of, became more and more and more of a Bitcoiner over time. And I moved from CPU mining to GPU mining to mining shitcoins for a while, because I drank some of that Kool-Aid for a little bit. But then obviously when it became really obvious that wasn't going to kind of be a viable business going forward, transition to Bitcoin. And then obviously the thing with Bitcoin is once you're into the ASIC tier of mining is you have to go for scale. Like that's really the only way that you can kind of make any sense financially. And so that's when we started looking at taking on investment, finding a proper site, and then doing the kind of due diligence on what we're looking at doing in the near future, which is like kind of on site, either on or off grid, very, very cheap and maybe demand managed mining. So yeah, I've had a kind of like a exponential run into being a Bitcoiner from low touch, low interest to fully in.
Sorry, can I just go back, not to focus on it a little bit, but you said you did the shitcoin mining. You said you were shitcoin mining, but it became clear that it wasn't viable. So when that became clear that it wasn't viable, did you also then go, okay, I'm not interested in shitcoins at all? Did you just move completely, or what happened there?
I think there's two aspects to the process there, because there's that cognitive process, right? Where I think it's valuable as a Bitcoiner to have spent some time getting to understand crypto, the wider crypto space. And I still consider myself a Bitcoin MIDI, and that I think there's some value in crypto as a testbed for what we should bring over to Bitcoin, right? We should de-risk everything that's worth doing in crypto at somebody else's expense in these Ponzi's that, and these kind of venture capital backed, foundation run and autocratically managed shitcoins. Let them do the hard work, and let's bring the interesting and useful stuff over to Bitcoin and onto Lightning. Things like, on-chain swaps, like dexes and stuff, native stable coins, two-way pegs, all that sort of stuff was really, really valuable. but let's get it absolutely right. So we don't have a Luna on Bitcoin. We just have the right solution on Bitcoin. And but back to what I was saying, I think it's really useful to have spent that time in crypto because you kind of understand actually what really makes Bitcoin special. There's all the shit that goes on in TradFi. Banks are awful. Central banks are even worse. Remittances, financial networks, all terrible. You can see that from outside the Bitcoin ecosystem perfectly well. That drives you to Bitcoin. But then you look at the crypto space as well, and you go, well, look, any of these centrally run and administered ecosystems can rug pull you any time, like Ethereum did with the move to proof of stake. They took the businesses of probably tens of thousands of miners around the world and just pulled the rug out from under them. Forget about the investment that you've made in hardware and equipment. Forget about the new power supplies you've had set out. Forget about the damage you've had us do to the graphics card market. We're going to change it to something that is fundamentally flawed, doesn't make any sense for anybody except the large institutional holders of this token, and decimates an existing profitable business. And so it's really useful to kind of have that experience and go, well, that's just not possible in Bitcoin. You get all of the benefits of decentralized ledgers, of the censorship-free transactions, all that stuff that Bitcoin and, to be fair, crypto also offers, but without any of the variability and without any of the risk of a centralized entity pulling the rug out from under you. And so that's why I think it's really valuable to have spent time in that side of the business and understanding that while it works most of the time, that the times that it doesn't work are really problematic, and so problematic that it's not worth the risk when we've got an exceptional alternative in Bitcoin.
So if we go, even before, what problem are you yourself trying to solve for yourself? Not for anyone else, not looking big picture. When you first came in, what were you technically minded? Were you looking at opportunities in New Zealand? Were you an energy guy? What was the thing that got you in and looking?
I've always been really interested in I've always been a hobbyist hardware tinkerer, right?
Yeah.
Love building computers, love soldering stuff, build my own keyboards, all that kind of stuff. And if there's a spare part lying around, I love to find a new use for it, an innovative way to do something with it. And so that was, mining is a very natural kind of, it's like a hobby that was just sort of waiting there. It was just perfect for me to pick up because it's exactly the kind of thing I like doing. Hacking together a really ugly computer that is absolutely fine and works almost better being ugly and exposed and a big bundle of cables. That was a dream come true for a kind of hobbyist tinkerer like me. And so, yeah, getting into that, and then the optimization, the kind of, you get it running stably for 6 months or so, and then, I could never resist kind of getting in there and seeing if I could squeeze a little bit more out, more efficiency, more hash, whatever. And so I guess what I sort of did in that process was just kind of de-risk or to kind of really understand the dynamics of this business before kind of going in whole hog like I have now. And so yeah, what attracted me to mining. It's just a very natural kind of progression from the kinds of things I did as a hobbyist to what I'm doing, now professionally. In terms of what attracted me to Bitcoin, I think everybody goes through a progression of kind of maturity with the concept, because I think when I first probably got into it, I thought, hey, you know what? It makes perfect sense for the internet to have its own money, right? Hey, Bitcoin makes real sense, but you would never kind of use it as money outside the internet, would you? But I was looking forward to the day when all transactions on the internet would be based on Bitcoin. It was just quick, fast transactions. Everybody had a little Bitcoin balance. that they occasionally put, fiat into to, supplement what they were doing on the internet. Through kind of, I guess, Bitcoin, I think, kind of grew with me, and that I grew into a professional guy with a family, guy who owned a house, guy with a mortgage, guy who had to make decisions about the application of the money that was coming into a household, and looking at the way that wealth was being kind of, it was being whipped out from under Joe Average like myself and hoovered up into the hands of banks, shareholders of banks, the billionaire class, those types of people, the people who are really good at exactly that process.
Were you aware of that always, or is that something that's grown as your knowledge of Bitcoin, or is it hard to say, as your knowledge of Bitcoin has grown?
It's really hard to say. I mean, I went to my PhD is in business. I studied the last global financial crisis. That's what I did my PhD on. I looked at companies and their performance during that particular time of the world's history. And I think what we, in doing so, I did a deep dive into what occurred, right? And it was pure malfeasance on the parts of banks, insurers, of investment banks and finance companies, who were running roughshod and playing, fast and loose with other people's money in a environment that had almost no consequences to them, and all consequences were, externalized to Joe Average. And so in 2013, 14, 15 through 16, unfortunately, PhDs take a long time, I kind of had a growing understanding of that was the kind of thing that goes on.
Yeah.
And it continues to go on. I was just listening to a podcast with Lynn Alden today. I think it was I'm not sure if I'm allowed to mention other podcasts, but what Bitcoin did today with Lynn Alden.
You can mention anyone other than Pete. No, I'm just fine.
And so what's really, really clear is that the same stuff's going on. It's just they take a break from it for a while they've got their fingers burnt and their hands slapped, and then it just goes back to business as usual. And so Bitcoin, of course, is pure escapism from that system. It allows us to step out of it, to opt out of it, and to from the sidelines to say, well, enjoy your Ponzi, but I've opted out, and I will, it gives us the opportunity, I'm sure you recognize this as well as Bitcoiners, it gives us the opportunity to go, well, you know what? And like I'm saying with crypto, I'll have that bit of what you're offering. I might take some of your low interest rates for 10 years. That's great. Thank you very much. But I'm not having any of this, ponzification of stocks and equities. I'm not having any of this excessive printing and harvesting of my purchasing power for the benefit of, financing, government spending and the bailout of banks, businesses who are, technically insolvent. So that's what I think, that's my kind of process, and my learning and my development has kind of gone alongside that of Bitcoin. And I think I'm very fortunate that the Bitcoin narrative has developed and emerged at the same time I've kind of emerged into a, kind of a mature financial entity in and of myself.
Yeah, so, you've kind of got a, sorry, Brendan, was that you?
No, you go, mate. I'm moving sideways, so you go.
Okay. Don't know what that means, but I'll keep talking.
I'm intrigued. We can't even see him.
I'm having a wank. Jeez. It's a technique that I've perfected over the years.
I really hope that pillar doesn't fall off the camera, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Totally derailed. Right, I'll try and compose myself. So basically, what you've got is a confluence of hobby interests, academic interests, and just general, awareness, I guess, of what's going on. So, I mean, I think we're exceedingly lucky, not just for the price of it, but to have some sort of interest that, or maybe multiple interests that brings you in this period of time. We're so lucky that it's not a chore for any of us, and we're all doing this because we want to be here. So it's fun, right?
Yep.
And I'm sure the day job will have its challenges, but it's still, you'll still enjoy it more than you don't. So let's go there then. So when did the business become a thing, and when did you start deciding, okay, well, this is where I live, this is the part of the world I live in, there I can see this opportunity here, I'm going to chase it. Where does that all come in?
Yeah, good. It's a good question. It's a good question.
Well, you know what? That was also my question that I was about to shoot out, but fucking hell, I'll go back to my wank.
What does shoot out in this context mean, mate?
I'll send you pictures.
Hi, ladies.
You can't though. You can't. Your internet's too slow.
Okay. I'll write you a letter.
Okay, so paint me like one of your French girls. Look, in the dying days of the 2010s, I was doing a lot of my work was as a tourism consultant to some of the larger tourism businesses in New Zealand. And then I don't know if you've heard of there was this COVID, I think it's called. I don't know this. They stopped flying airplanes for a while, and that was it hasn't landed, by the way.
COVID. I don't get it. Tell me, what did I miss there?
Exactly, it was a horrific joke that didn't land. COVID put paid to that as a just at that time, right? I was a tourism consultant, and it's just stopped everything dead. Fortunately, of course, at that time, Bitcoin was doing pretty well, and so we were sort of sitting pretty at the time, resting on our laurels. Gosh, those were halcyon days, weren't they? And so that was also at the time when several people are kind of coming to me as the oracle that I am, just for sort of advice on this stuff. One guy in particular, Sam, who's now kind of co-founder and Snacker, was like, we should really be doing this. Like, what can we do here? And I've got these graphics cards whirring away in the background. I've always really wanted to go bigger with this. And he said, let's do it. And so it was kind of born out of an abundance of time during lockdown. But it's not so easy, there is 99.9% of the places on the entire planet, if somebody said, oh, we should start a mining company, oh, let's do it, and you did it where you lived, you'd be fucked. You would not be able to access energy at the scale and at the price that you need to do it profitably, and to do it profitably during times like this when hash price is extremely low. The money that you're getting for the energy that you're putting in to Bitcoin mining at the moment is as bad as it's ever been. So what I said to Sam was, look, if we want to do this, you need to go away, get 5 mates with 10 grand each, and then we'll stick it all in and we'll do it. He goes away, 10 minutes later, he brings me up, I've got 2. Is that enough? I said, no, it's not enough, but we better really make sure we do this properly. So I went away and kind of did a business plan, kind of did the scoping exercise, which was like, hey, if you were to do this, are we actually well positioned to do it? Am I going to have to move to Invercargill, or am I going to have to move to Cairns, or am I going to have to move to, Paraguay to do a good job of this? And as it turns out, Lower South Island of New Zealand is about as good a place as you could ever hope for in terms of the abundance of energy. Now, not awesomely priced at the meter, at your house.
We're talking hydro here, I think it mostly hydro.
Mostly hydro. Sort of about 50% of New Zealand's energy is hydro, but wind, solar, geothermal are all growing, particularly wind and solar, and particularly wind. But the reality is New Zealand needs to add about 5% more renewables capacity every year to reach the targets for decarbonisation by 2050. in the last measurable year, we added 1%. So what we're doing at Stacker is not just mining Bitcoin at any cost, at any price that we can find profitable, in a way that's purely about the Bitcoin. We're kind of environmentalists at heart as well. And so what we're doing and what our kind of next phase is about kind of demand managed, highly flexible load. And what that means is we want to set up near a generator and say to that generator, sell us energy when it's profitable for you to sell us energy, but also when it's profitable for us to buy that energy. And at the times when everybody comes home at 5 o'clock, turns on their oven, turns on their lights, television, heat pump, plugs in their electric car, and you can get $250, $300 a megawatt, we'll take a step back and you can do that. You do that. And then when everybody goes to bed at 9, 10 p.m., those lights go off, the car's fully charged, nobody's baking, nobody's cooking a roast chicken anymore. And that megawatt hour price shoots back down to average or below average. That's where we can fire back up again. And what that does for generators is it gives them higher baseline revenue. Mm-hmm. So this is money that they weren't going to see otherwise, right? Yeah. Otherwise, they just see these oscillations in the price of electricity, and they'd just suck that up. They'd go, "Oh, it's great. We make money between 5 and 9 p.m. and we just kind of, 4 to 5 a.m. just kind of sucks, and that's the way it is." What we can say is, well, we'll actually bring that baseline of revenue up at 4 or 5 a.m. and of course around the rest of the day. And so you now have a better business case to go and add another 5 megawatts. You've got a better business case to say, well, we should upgrade the local substation so that it can handle more throughput. And you've got a business case to say, well, let's improve the transmission quality between here and there because we're now putting far more energy through it more consistently. And so what this enables us to do, and especially when we're at the kind of scale that we'd like to be at 50, 100, 200 megawatts distributed around New Zealand and even Australia. And if it was 50, and if it was around Australia as well, we'll be talking, hundreds of megawatts, is to kind of lift the performance of the entire grid in a symbiotic way where we can say, hey, this is valuable for you. It's valuable for us. It doesn't matter what we're doing with the energy, right? We'll just buy energy off you at a fair price that wasn't going to get sold otherwise, or was going to get sold at a lower price. So it's win-win-win as far as I'm concerned, because it's a win for us, it's a win for the generator, and it's a win for consumers because they were never going to use that energy anyway. But what they now have is potentially cheaper energy because there's more capacity, so higher supply, low average, same demand, so lower prices at the meter, but also a higher performing grid that delivers more consistent, resilient energy to houses. So that's the business plan, man. In a nutshell, that's what we're aiming to do for New Zealand and Australia, using flexible load from Bitcoin.
That's fucking brilliant.
It is. Go on, Brenda.
I mean, all I was going to say is like these generators, like, are you getting people or companies that are sort of pushing back saying, no, Bitcoin's a scam, blah, 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 or do they actually listen and can understand the business case for that?
Yeah, so it's a bit of everything, right? We have a partnership with a renewables consultancy, which is a great one because they've just got a link to everybody in the country who's ever put in a turbine or done a business case for scaling renewables or something, because these guys have kind of had a crack at either they've got a relationship with them. And so one of the first people that they approached on our behalf said, you'll never get our energy because we're not into the greenwashing of cryptocurrencies. So that was obviously right to have as your first entry to the market. But at the end of the day, the best way to phrase it is that these guys are falling over themselves to have this kind of load on site. Because again, at the end of the day, they're in the business of selling electricity. And if you can sell more electricity, or you can sell the same electricity at a higher price, that's good for business. Yeah. The thing about renewables is that because they're intermittent by their very nature, right? Solar only during the day, wind only when the wind's blowing, lake levels for hydro goes up and down. And so you actually have to overbuild the capacity that your demand profile requires in case you get that perfect storm of overcast, still day, dry summer, and you don't have enough power flowing onto the network, right? So you have to overbuild the capacity of renewables. But what that means is that during the very opposite of those times, sunny, windy, has been wet. I don't know how you get sunny and wet. Sometimes you can. Then you've got plenty of energy that goes begging. And so that's, again, another opportunity for, large flexible load, like we're talking about, to kind of come in and soak up that energy that would otherwise have been wasted, or what they call curtailed. So there's so many ways that it fits nicely into the grid, and the way the grid operates, and that the way the grid wants to and needs to scale, that it seems like a no-brainer to us. Now, it hasn't been recognized as a no-brainer that it is to us across the board. There are still sort of, outside the Bitcoin community, Bitcoin can still be a bit of a dirty word. I don't understand that. I put it down to the fact that, unlike AI companies who are going to be the next big power consumer around the world and aren't getting the same scrutiny as Bitcoin, there's no marketing department and there's no PR department. Yeah. So when somebody writes a shitty article for a newspaper or something, and it gets published without any kind of vetting of the truthfulness, accuracy, or fairness of the claims that it makes, there's nobody to approach at Bitcoin Inc. Who can, there's no PR person who can go, well, Bitcoin Inc. vehemently disagrees with these statements for these reasons. There's nobody to do that on its behalf. And so I think that's why the narrative kind of continues to run away on the Bitcoin is bad, Bitcoin is boiling the oceans, when it is demonstrably not. It is far more renewably produced than any other commodity on the planet. It uses 0.2% of the world's energy, despite being used by about 0.8% of the world's population. So it is used by 4 times more people than the energy proportionally that it utilizes. And it creates a huge amount of value and wealth for people who engage with it in a way that just hasn't been kind of socialized to the same extent as gold mining, as having office buildings full of people tapping away on computers, putting bank account numbers into spreadsheets. Yeah. So we still do have a bit of a hump to get over. One place where it's working extremely well, exactly like I've described it here, is Texas. They are using Bitcoin mining to flare methane, taking that out of the out of greenhouse gas contribution equation. They're using it to connect to renewables like solar and wind before they get connected to the grid. So they're monetizing energy that was never going to be sold before anyway. But now it's giving a return to the generator that was never there before. And it's scaling renewables by providing that kind of...
Oh, for fuck's sake. All right. So, okay. So everyone that listens knows that we're too cheap to fucking pay for Zoom. And Simon was going off. I got my second boner. I was ready to go, and then it cut off. So you were talking about Texas. Please continue, mate, because it was fucking enthralling.
I was timing that because I'm just trying to edge you a bit. So that's horrible. So as I was saying, Texas is doing an awesome job. So they've used Bitcoin mining to scale out renewables, or Bitcoin mining has allowed and has subsidized the cost of scaling out renewables. But the other thing that's working extremely well is that when they have these more and more frequent weather events like heat waves or storms, like cold snaps is probably putting it lightly, Bitcoin mining is using purely price signals to turn off, so that when air conditioners or central heating or whatever goes on, the price of electricity goes up, and Bitcoin miners go, "Ooh, that's too rich for our blood," and they scale their operations back, based purely on price signals from the market. And what they saw during the particularly bad winter storm they had over Christmas, was that without any prompting, without any angry phone calls from the energy agency called ERCOT, 96.4% of miners turned their operations off to allow the grid to transmit the energy that was required by consumers. And then when that kind of the need of the grid for that energy was alleviated, miners came back online. So in one of the biggest single jurisdictions for energy and energy management that you could hope for in a developed Western country, you've got an extremely good case study of how this type of Bitcoin mining system delivers extremely good value to consumers, strengthens the grid, and helps green the grid, all at a profit for miners.
Can I just? I've heard that story with Texas, and I understand where it's coming from, but what I'm not sure of it. Are the miners being paid to turn off? Are they?
Yeah.
What is practice? There must be something happening there, right?
Yeah. So you have to be careful about listening to Elizabeth Warren about anything, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But so one of there are lots of types of different ways to procure energy, right? You can do what we did at our test site, which is you just sign up to a retailer and you shop around retailers to get the best price. That's what most people do in their homes. You can shop around generators to find where you would want the best wholesale rates. You can shop around regions to find where regionally you're getting the best pricing. And then you get into quite complicated kind of derivative or financialized arrangements for energy, and whether that's sort of a futures market for energy and that type of thing. You can, especially when you're buying at extremely, really, really large volume, you can effectively buy a future price for your kilowatts or megawatts of energy. And then when they're not available to you, you can claim sort of damages or recompense for that, or you can be remunerated for not having access to that energy. And that happens in some cases where you've got what's called a PPA, a power purchasing agreement, that guarantees you energy or guarantees you a certain amount of uptime or guarantees you a certain price. Then that's not available to you. You're entitled to some compensation. And I think that's what is kind of referred to by these Bitcoin miners got paid to turn off their sites. Well, actually what they've bought is guaranteed electricity. And when you couldn't provide it to them, they were entitled to what they would have made mining when they were entitled to that energy. What's not reported in the same breath is that for 98.8% of the year, there's no other downtime. There's no downtime. And so what these retailers or the generators have had over the rest of the year is plenty of profit out of miners to pay that compensation for when they're obliged to provide energy to the grid, because we have a kind of a near or natural disaster state that's emerging in the wider environment.
Win-win, right?
Win-win.
Everybody's
It's
winning.
win-win. It's win-win-win. Yeah.
The producers winning, the miners winning, and the populace is winning, because when they needed their power at most in an emergency situation, they've got it. So it's, I mean,
it's exactly right.
So is this
It's
sorry?
when-
Is this like
when-
an automated process though for miners to actually go right? Is there a threshold where they cut off, or is this actually manually switching off?
No, well, that's a good question. It depends how sophisticated you are. I mean, even we're having at the moment, we're going through a development process with a software developer to create software that will take a bunch of different inputs. So what we hope to have in the future is lots of sites at lots of different generators. And at each of those different generators, we're looking to we'll no doubt have different arrangements where we might have some contractual arrangements, which is, well, actually, you're required to buy energy off us for 75% plus of the day, 20 hours plus a day, and you're only allowed to turn off because we've banked or we've built a business case on extension or we've subsidized you into something. So you have to, make sure you're on for that amount of time, whether it's profitable for you or not. We need software that will go, okay, I need these machines to run for a certain amount of the day. We can model the fact that we're likely to see the best prices between the 75% of the day. We're likely to see the best prices between this time, this day, and this day. But if we get a very strange pricing signal because of a spike in the spot price, we need to be able to kind of go, oh, we'll take that off, and then we'll add another 5-minute, 10-minute, 1 hour window at the end of our projected window when we can expect to see that. So, and then the other side is just taking pure spot price and going, oh, price of electricity is $300 a megawatt. That's not profitable for us. Let's turn off until it gets back down to $245. And so that software looks at the different conditions that are being fed into it from a number of different inputs, puts it through a decision tree, and then decides, are we above or below the line, and either turns the miners on or off based on that decision tree. And I would imagine that in Texas, these really large miners, I know for a fact that Hut 8 have very sophisticated software that manages all of their sites across a huge number of variables and also tracks the uptime of each individual machine, plus assessing all of these variables for whether or not they're profitable. I would imagine that these guys have quite sophisticated kind of controls over whether or not they should be on or should be off. What happened during the storm? It was purely pricing signal that gave these miners the turn off signal. So I would imagine nobody's sitting there with a calculator and a spreadsheet every 5 minutes and working that out, because that's the manual way to do it. In New Zealand, for example, there's a energy management system which you can buy access to the API for, and it gives you energy pricing in 5-minute windows. And you could set up software like what we're designing to read that API, say, oh, that's too expensive for us. Oh, that looks good to us, and just tell your machines to either turn on or off. So I'm sure because ERCOT, which is the Texas lines or transmissions management entity over there, would be more sophisticated than what we have over here because of the complexity of what they're managing. That being said, who knows? So I'm sure they have some sort of signal like that, some sort of infrastructure like that allows them to do so.
Man, listening to. Oh, sorry, mate. You go.
No, please.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, listening to this, like, and it seems to be every bloody pod that we do. It just reminds me how fucking early we are. Like it's all this emergent tech that just like. It's just mind blowing. It's so simple and makes sense, and it should happen, but it's just like fuck, man.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I know.
My question.
Do you know what? I've got a guiding kind of principle that I shamelessly stole from somebody else, and it is that sound money and abundant energy are key to human flourishing.
Yeah.
Like
Jeff Booth,
we need energy, power our lights. Could be. I shamelessly ripped it from another mining company's pitch deck. So, Jeff Booth wasn't attributed there, but it probably is because he's exactly the kind of person who would say that. And Bitcoin mining, especially in the way that we're kind of proposing it here and that we're seeing in places like Texas, is exactly that intersection, right? It is the intersection of sound money and abundant energy, and it's the lever that activates both of those things. And when that's what gets me out of bed in the morning to do this kind of work, because we are on the smell of an oily rag at the moment as we kind of work to get to our next phase. It's that we are so early that we're the one pulling the big lever on getting this thing started, not scaling it, not maintaining it, not tinkering around the edges. We're starting it right from scratch in this country, and so early.
But in that early and in that sort of asymmetry of knowledge comes the opportunity, right? So the three of us here can sit here and go, all right, yeah, I get this, understand what you're saying. I can see what your business is. I don't understand. But the next question, I don't understand why the energy producer doesn't want to do it themselves, because holy shit, this is exactly what they should do. But but because they're not ready for that yet, because we are so early, that creates the space for you to have, a growing business, and which will maybe be at some stage vertically integrated into that chain. But I mean, maybe somebody buys you out for God knows how much. I mean that's just.
Oh yes, please.
Yeah, I mean that just seems natural to me. That just seems natural, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
You just keep working
100%.
hard until it happens.
And yeah, totally. And we just got to keep pushing. And I have no doubt that we will get there, because it seems so self-evident. We just got to get the critical mass of interest going, and we just got to get a couple of deployments under our belt before we can kind of go. See.
Yeah,
it's obvious.
Yeah. So what is the challenge for you for a business? Sorry, Brenda, you want to have something?
Sorry, say that again.
No, you go.
My question is just, what is the challenge for the business? Like, is it the relationship building? Is it the understanding piece? Is it the forming those relationships with power producers, or what is the main challenge for you?
Well, what they say is that bear markets are for building. What we have done over the 12 to 18 months of this last half of the cycle, or this last piece of the Bitcoin cycle, while we're running at a low ebb, we're not really mining consistently. We're doing sort of more testing and efficiency modeling rather than mining. Machines that are on, I'm actually using to underclock and undervolt to see where I can squeeze the most hash per watt out of them. So we're not kind of like full noise, all machines on. But what we're doing is spending our time thinking about, well, what is the business model? How do we scale it? What do we need to do that? And what does it look like when we've done it? So things like designing containers that can be moved, understanding what our civil requirements are. Like in New Zealand, at least we have like resource consents or building consents, which, you have to kind of tell the local government what you're doing. Is it legal? Like if we're going to stick a megawatt of energy into a big metal container, first of all, we know that it's legal, but, is it legal to be done in any old way you want, or are there really specific ways it has to be done, that kind of stuff. So learning about exactly what we're going to deploy once we get funded. The big hurdle for us is funding. Like if you gave me $2 to $3 million, I would know exactly what I would do with it tomorrow. And I know exactly the pathway to revenue for both us and for load for these generators is. Just need to find it. And to be honest, I'm not out there looking for it just yet. We're at the final stages of kind of gathering up all of that intelligence and knowledge that we've been developing over the last 12 to 18 months and packaging it for the right people, because we really want the right investor online with this, because we want smart money, not, I don't want to say dumb money. We do just want money, to be perfectly honest. I will actually just take any money. Any money. Any money, actually. I know, I've just realized I'm shooting myself in the foot. Please just give me some money.
Nice. It is interesting to see the sort of ego deaths of the world coming in, like the Bitcoin venture funds now. That's going to be money for a lot of people.
I'm looking forward to being at Bitcoin Alive, where one of their founding partners is speaking.
Andy,
and also I'm on Andy, and I'm on stage with Daniel from
Block.
I was on a chat with him the other day.
Hard Block.
Daniel H.
Oh,
Not hard block, but digital asset firm. I'll look him up. I hope he doesn't listen to this because that's just bad.
don't worry, no one listens.
I'm terrible with names,
no
but yeah. But he's a great guy, and again, I just want to get that approach right, because I think from what brief chat with him, he might be a good fit. But I'm sure there's heaps out there, and look, the opportunity is wide open. We're not the first movers in New Zealand in Bitcoin mining, but we are probably the first movers in kind of demand response or revenue curtailment in the way that we're talking about doing it. So it's a good space to be in. Right time, right place, right country, right people, right proposition. Just need the right money.
There are three Daniels at Bitcoin Alive. Sorry, Brendo, just very quickly. Daniel Leslie, Daniel Pickering, and Daniel from Hardblock too. So,
Daniel Pickering.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The Daniels are coming at the bends apparently.
And the Gregs.
Yeah. We should call it Daniels Alive.
Okay, I've got a question. Can I ask a question?
Sorry, yes. Apologies. It's hard when it comes to your face.
I would like to know, Simon, your opinion on home mining now.
Yeah, look, I think every Bitcoiner should have a miner at home. Like it's a really great way to make sure that you don't have the distraction that is a wife around, because they will be out the door so fucking fast that you'll never, like it'll make your hat spin, and they will make sure that nobody else is coming around to hang out because they're so awful to be around, and you can really focus in on what's important, which is Bitcoin, right? All of that said, and all jokes aside, I think home mining is really important for the strength of the network. There is a huge tier of what I call the centralized tier of miners in the United States, and Texas is a knife that cuts both ways, because it's a great case study for exactly the type of grid management that we're talking about here, but also they have gigawatt facilities that represent such an enormous amount of the total hash of Bitcoin that it's a real risk that our hash rate, and therefore our security, is centralized in the hands of just a few companies, which have different incentives to us as pure Bitcoiners. They are responsible to their shareholders, so their incentive is actually to grow as big as possible, as fast as possible, to take as much hash as possible, and to get the most return per hash in Bitcoin, paid out as dividend or sold down or whatever. So their incentives are very different to us. And so if we were to create an army of tens of thousands of Bitcoiners, all with S19s or Watts miners, MS50s, or other models that are, kind of punching up nice and high in terms of hash, we will offset that slightly. It's going to be really hard to compete with them if they can continue to buy all of the hash. And so more than ever, I think it's important for home miners to kind of find a cupboard downstairs in a basement in the garage and set up a machine that not only teaches you quite a lot about how Bitcoin works, about how much energy goes into it, and how it all runs on the back end, like how a miner runs, how you connect to a pool, what the pool does with your hash rate, and then how a pool pays you out, is all really interesting stuff to know as a Bitcoiner. It's a really important part of, the infrastructure of this asset that we're all, so this asset, network, and currency that we're all, so kind of passionate about. And so, yeah, I think everybody should have one. And there are really good ways to make them quieter, whether that's a home immersion kit, or whether it's a sort of a sound baffling box, or whether it's just putting them a really fucking long way away. And they're not that expensive to run individually. When you get a bunch of them together, you start chipping into quite high power bills. But yeah, all for it.
But are they profitable, right? So if I want to buy an S19 or a M30, M50, whatever you said, are they profitable for me?
It depends how much you get your power for. It depends how much you're paying for electricity. So in New Zealand, we get a lot of like day and night plans. So you might pay 23, 25, even 30 cents during the day, but overnight you might get 16, 13, or 11 cents. And if you GST registered, you get another 15% off that. And that's profitable. So you could run it for 12 hours a day, or you could take the average price, and it's kind of like DCAing, right? Like you're kind of putting energy dollars in and you're getting Bitcoin out, and you're DCAing in every 10 minutes or every day using your Bitcoin miner. Are they purely profitable? And I tell you what, there's a lot of tiers of model within the S19 range. There's the older S19s at 80 terahash through 85, 90, 95, 96, 100, 104, 110, 122, 131, 140, 144 terahash models. Each of those comes with different efficiency and slightly different power consumption. So the machine that you get defines whether or not you're above the line, below the line, or right on the line in terms of profitability. But I would also say, as a Bitcoiner, it's worth it to subsidize it by a couple of bucks a day to have money in your pocket, to strengthen the network, to learn about Bitcoin. And like I say, to have a nice empty home free of distraction.
And also KYC free Bitcoin.
KYC free Bitcoin as well, which and you know, like you can sell that for a premium. And last I checked, you can, if you're really savvy, you can get about 12% premium on non-KYC Bitcoin.
Already? Wow.
Yeah. The right exchange, the right time, the right buyer, with the right mix of fuck all other sellers, to be perfectly honest, and not sort of dumping a whole bunch on the market at once. But yeah, I've seen 12% premiums quite recently.
Simon, what is your opinion on the current explosion in hash? I mean, who is that?
Yeah. Oh, I think it's Texas. I think it's a huge amount of hash rate that was sidelined by ERCOT, who wanted to slow down miners coming onto the grid. They reckon that, I mean, and I was listening to one of the guys from the Texas Blockchain Council talk about this recently. He was saying he reckons there's another 20% to come online in Texas that's just waiting to be connected in different ways. And so I think that's what we're seeing. I think we're seeing each of these large facilities that have been waiting to be connected coming online. And it's companies like Hut 8 who have, you know, done a really good job of managing the bear market, have come out of it with a lot of free cash, and they're picking up some of these S19s that were bought for $90 a terahash at, you know, the absolute peak, and people had nowhere to plug them in because they were into the gold rush phase of mining. And they bought them in a rush, had nowhere to stick them in. Now Hut 8 picking hundreds of thousands of machines literally up for $10 a terahash, brand new inbox S19s, and plugging them in en masse as well because they're capitalized or well capitalized, and they have the facility and the capacity to plug them in. I mean, I'd love to see it slow down a little bit. You know, it's a real mixed bag, of course, because it's really good for Bitcoin. It's it's incredible security for Bitcoin. That's what hash is. It is the security budget of the network. But it's really tough on small miners like us. It means either you've got to be getting your electricity for dirt cheap, or you've got to be buying the most expensive and efficient machines, or you've got to be happy to kind of hash away at a loss for a bit, and hope that the Bitcoin that you're hashing, for the pure sake of utilizing your fit out, will eventually be more than it is at the moment, which we all know it will be. But how long can you sit on that and have that kind of on your books at a loss for? That's the question. So yeah, the explosion of hash. I don't know. I mean, generally we think of hash as quite a lagging indicator, right? Like the price goes up, and then as people realize that they can be profitable where they are, they go out and buy machines, and they find some facility to plug them in, and they do the kind of infrastructure. And it could take 6 months or a year for hash to catch up to price. But we're seeing a very strange. I mean, if it's lagging, it's lagging by 18 months, and that's a very long lag. Or we're seeing somebody who's placing a big bet, knows where they're getting their energy for cheap, and are really well capitalized to it. And to me, that just sounds like Texas.
Yeah, or Russia, but that's a whole conspiracy in itself, is it?
It sure is. It sure is. I mean, yeah. I mean, who got hold of those Compass mining sites that they sanctioned over there?
Yeah.
But still, I mean, we're talking 30% increase in hash rate in just a few short months. I mean, that's more than one or two facilities. That's The reality is hash rate with Intel coming in, with Bitmain selling machines like hotcakes, no matter what the market is doing, hash rate increases are par for the course. And maybe they won't be parabolic forever, but hash rate increases are life going forward. So we have to learn how to deal with that. How do you manage that? How do you manage that? It's getting your energy prices for cheaper, making sure you're really, really efficient, and making sure that you can ride out any periods between when you're efficient and profitable, so that you're not kind of caught short like so many people were over the last 12 to 18 months.
Yeah. If there was, imagine a hypothetical situation where there was a guy that lived just quite close to me, had just installed 13 kilowatts of solar on their roof and putting in the battery, and was thinking about buying a miner for the first time. What would you get? What advice would you give for that guy? Let's call him Brando.
Okay, right. Well, this hypothetical person should hit me up offline, and I will put this person in touch with our vendor, who gets better prices than Bitmain spot prices, and we'll sort you out with one.
Well, Brando, if you are listening out there, Brando.
Brando's a troll.
I think, look, if you're getting 13 kilowatts is great, because that's a lot. That's quite a lot of energy. 13, yep. So it depends how much you draw. It depends how much Brando draws on a daily basis, whether he's got an electric car, whether he uses an electric oven or an induction oven, as to how much energy Brando is going to have left over at the end of Brando's day and left on Brando's battery. And whether Brando wants to be purely off grid or is happy to kind of charge the battery up off peak overnight as well, because you got a duck curve, right? You heard of the duck curve?
No.
It's worth looking up. It's a curve that shows how during the day production of renewables goes up massively, because as solar comes online, and renewable energy generation peaks around 3 p.m. in the afternoon when it's windiest and it's sunniest, but demand goes down over the course of the day, and it actually bottoms out in the middle of the day around 3 p.m. and then it comes back up as people come home and turn stuff on again. So what you get is this mismatch of energy production and energy demand, which is called the duck curve, because it looks like a duck's body. It's got a big kind of sloping body, and or maybe duck's an acronym, and I've always been mischaracterizing it as such. But it's got like a disassociated user curtailment. I can't think of the K one. And what it means is that you've got all this excess energy during the day, right? Especially from solar. And so a Bitcoin miner is the perfect place to put it, especially if your battery's charged. Like, what are you going to do with that energy otherwise? Sell it to the grid for pittance? No, turn it into non-KYC Bitcoin. So, and the good thing about something like that is when you're getting your energy for free, you don't need the newest, most efficient miner. You don't have to spend, 4.5, 5 grand US on an XP. You could get a couple of 80 terahash S19s for $1,200 and hash away happily, and they'll work for years and years. You could either plug them into some software that you could run some software on a server or something that tells it when to turn off based on signals from your inverter or battery, or you could just kind of estimate the time of the day that makes sense to be mining, and away you go. And yeah, like I say, you won't have any pesky housemates around. You have a house all to yourself.
Well, Brando, if you're out there and listening, please call in.
I reckon Brando would like that summation.
Awesome. Well, make sure you send this to Brando.
I will.
Very quickly, for the benefit of, sorry, mate, go on. Sorry about this lag.
No, I got nothing to say. Just fucking, I reckon Brando is hot as fuck.
I've never seen him. Never turns his webcam on.
No, that's right.
If Simon, you're coming across to speak at Bitcoin Alive on the 15th of April.
And just sorry guys,
right.
just quickly, we got about 5 minutes left. If you're keen to kind of wrap it up.
Yeah,
You're
as I was going to say, what should people, if people want thinking about coming along to that, what kind of format is your thing taking? Do you know yet?
Yeah. So we've got sort of a roundtable discussion, and it's going to be hosted or emceed by Daz, which will be really cool because he's got some great engineering knowledge on it, but it's not necessarily a miner in and of himself. But obviously a great personality, great wit, very funny, and I think he'll be awesome. And then there's 3 of us. There's Piers, Daniel, and myself, who will be talking kind of a range of topics. I think we're sort of keen to keep it very conversational, but if I may say so, we're all pretty knowledgeable and experienced, and I think there's so much to talk about in mining. And it's so important, as I think we've kind of outlined here today, that this is a part of Bitcoin that is fundamental to how it operates. And so it's really important to know about it because, Lightning is so exciting and has so much awesome functionality and so much potential. And it quite rightly steals the show in terms of discussion and what it can do and kind of highlighting those opportunities for potential. But at the end of the day, us boring old miners are the ones that keep the lights on this thing, and there's exciting stuff going on here too, and that's what people can come along and hear spoken about.
Awesome. Well, we'll not steal the thunder of the event. Hopefully, people can make it along to that here for themselves. 15th of April. Come along and listen to Simon talk if you'd like to hear a little bit more, and I'm sure there'll be opportunity to chat kind of more socially afterwards if people want to do that too. Is there anywhere you want to send something?
What was that? Sorry.
I was just saying, is there anywhere you want to send people to, like a Twitter handle or an Oster pub key or a website?
I'm at Simon O'Collins on Twitter, stacker.co.nz for Stacker. I'm still building out my Noster account, so especially after Briskets. I've never heard anybody explain Noster as well as Brisket did the other week, and that's why I was really hoping to make an appearance today. But that's all good. We send. But I want to record that little snippet as like here's your Noster primer. Anyway. So I'm still building up my Nostr account, but I will put my pub key in Twitter as soon as it's looking a little bit tidier. I am committed to Nostra. I think it's great. It's like lightning, so exciting, so much potential in it, and so it's more and more important for us as miners to keep the lights on for those kinds of innovative layers over the top of Bitcoin. It's awesome.
For sure.
Brilliant.
All right, mate.
Well, thank you very much. Look forward to catching up with you next month.
Yeah, mate. Can't wait.
Thanks, buddy.
Brendo, are you still with us, or are you nude? What's happening here?
No, I'm good. I'm gonna get busy after this. So I've had a great time.
Sounds like you have been busy. Are you guys are Sydney based?
We're like 4 hours north, so we were there for a few days. So
Right.
we'll get the
Awesome.
opportunity.
Yeah, so I'm there. Yeah, I'm there Thursday afternoon through Tuesday because I'm keen to meet up with people outside the session as well. Just because I'm I think the opportunity. There's so much parallel between New Zealand and Australia's Bitcoin communities. We should be cross-fertilizing as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely.
And as far as I know, there's not a huge amount of that going on. So I'm gonna step on the gas on that. And this is the first foray. This is my junket.
Awesome. All right, we're still recording, dude. So we've actually got to say goodbye, and then we can keep chatting. And thanks for being our guests. Goodbye.
Hey, thanks
Sayonara.
for having me, guys. I'll see you next month.
Fantastic.
Thank you, mate.
See ya, Hats.